Picture this. You answer your country's call. You sacrifice for freedom only to come home and find everyday life full of obstacles no one should face. That's the reality for many veterans, even 35 years after the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed. Today's guest is the CEO of Paralyzed Veterans of America. He joins us with real solutions to help serve those who've served us all. Let's welcome Carl Blake. Good to have you on, Carl.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, so Carl, the Americans with Disabilities Act was hailed as a civil rights breakthrough, but 35 years later, are we keeping our promise to those who sacrificed so much, and where are we falling short?
So first, I'd share that Paralyzed Veterans of America has been around for almost 80 years, and accessibility is a core tenet of our mission. That's why we were so actively involved in the passage of the ADA in 1990. I think if you ask one of our members who lived with a catastrophic disability prior to the passage of the ADA, they would tell you the world is definitely a more accessible place. It is definitely better than it certainly was before the ADA. And yet the answer to your question is no, we have not lived up to the promise. There's still far too many people with disabilities, including veterans with disabilities, who experience barriers every day, and it impacts their ability to go about their daily lives.
What are some of the common barriers that paralyzed and disabled veterans face today?
Yeah, so some of the barriers they're really something you wouldn't even think about, but they're common for everyone in society. Sidewalks and crosswalks, and whether or not they have curb cuts that allow you to access those spaces. Restaurants, particularly older restaurants, whether or not they are accessible for particularly people with mobility impairments or wheelchairs. Entertainment venues. We've found issues with hotels and their accessibility, which obviously limits people with disabilities' ability to travel. And probably one of the more concerning issues we've seen in recent years is accessing healthcare. Many of our members who live in small towns, rural communities, they find that community setting, community clinics, small clinics out in that community are just not accessible. And unfortunately, we continue to hear about these concerns even today, even in spite of the passage of the ADA.
And mobility disabilities can result in missing important events and even appointments. So what is the emotional impact of these barriers, and how is this still happening, 3 decades later?
Yeah, and if you're a person with a disability and you encounter some sort of barrier that prevents you from participating in life, essentially participating in an event or going somewhere with your family, that has a devastating emotional impact. Look, most people with disabilities spend most of their lives just trying to maximize their independence, trying to live meaningful, fulfilling lives. They just want to be active, engaged members of society. So when they encounter a barrier of any kind, it really is devastating for them and for their families and friends. One of the biggest challenges we've seen over the years is compliance and enforcement. I think despite the changes mapped out by the ADA, there's still a significant lack of enforcement and compliance with many of the provisions of the ADA.
And let's talk about the continuous change trying to be made. What is your organization working for now, and how can our viewers support your efforts?
We want the average person in the general public, we want business owners, we want policymakers and elected officials to understand that they all have a role in influencing positive change. And you can learn about that by going to our website at pba.org. You'll find a long list of public service announcements that we've produced that show the various types of barriers that people with disabilities experience on a daily basis. We have an ongoing petition that calls for increased enforcement and compliance with the ADA. But ultimately what we want the general public to get into the fight.
Carl, we appreciate your time and all of those who have served. And as you mentioned, it starts with getting the word out. So thank you. I'm going to let our viewers know where they can go for more information. For veterans with disabilities, access means freedom. You can find out more by heading to pva.org/barriers still exist.